Hi everyone, welcome to another CoUnit Launchpad session. My name is Juan, I'm the facilitator of SES, one of the core units at Maker, and I'm here with a bunch of people interested in Maker in a way or another. Today we have session number 19, so we're here with the Deco fixed rate solution, and they are going to be explaining a bit more what Deco is and their proposal in the forum. So Vamsi, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Juan. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. So today it's gonna basically, so we have I obviously encourage everyone to go check the 4 MIPs that we pasted. They're a bit long, but I think they should give you the entire context around like Deco, where we are coming from, what is it that we hope to achieve with Maker, both like from the technical solution perspective, like our integration proposal, as well as the core unit, which we would like to set up and then drive this integration proposal for growth. So, quick overview about me. I'm sure I've met every one of you at some point. My experience at Maker, I was a member of the integrations engineering team as a senior engineer for about 3 years, from 18 to 21 until the foundation dissolved. And I've done some interesting work at Maker. I'd like to say, things like, I don't know, started the developer guides repo, wrote various intro level developer guides to explain all the complex jargon on the Maker side, and then simplifying it, and then helping developers understand Maker better and expand the ideas on what they can achieve with the Maker protocol. One interesting work item that I'm proud of is the emergency shutdown impact analysis. It's a guide that I'd encourage anyone who's interested in integrating with Maker, mostly at the smart contract level, but also any integration, to quickly take a look to see to basically make sure how to not only understand emergency shutdown, but also make sure how your users can be kept safe if emergency shutdown ever gets triggered in the Maker protocol. It analyzes the impact and then it filters it down into a set of recommendations on how an integration can deal with the emergency shutdown in a safe manner. One thing that actually another thing that I'm proud of is I've been around Maker since pretty much the first white paper was published, and I've seen the evolution of the protocol, the smart contracts, the white paper, pretty much since the beginning. I guess right from, I don't know if everybody knows, but Rune actually wrote smart contracts in 2015. He didn't just put out a DIE proposal. So starting from that, I'd consider that a prototype too. That, I guess, proto-sci, multi-collateral DIE, and then all the minor twists and turns in between as well. So that's me at Maker. Experience outside Maker, I worked in a similar role at SAP, focused on an enterprise analytics product for about 3 years. And I also have a master's in CS. So the topic of the day, Deco. This is our I guess I'd say a big pitch. Deco is a native solution that we are proposing for Maker, and so that's why it's an integration proposal as well as a core unit that's coming on board to manage it on behalf of Maker. So the big idea here is that compared to everything else, Deco is the one that's tokenizing the stability fee into it. It's creating a token, and we'd say the very big advantage for that is market rate discovery. So Maker governance has always been in a position where Maker governance had to set a rate, and then the vault owners choose to react to it or not. I think this gives like Maker an opportunity to flip the script and ask vault owners to reveal the private information that they have about like the rate outlook, about what they think is are the rates going to be over the next, like, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, by forcing them to purchase the rates, like by possibly competing with each other in like various formats, like could be auctions, could be like other sale mechanisms. But overall, like I think there's an opportunity to flip the script for the first time. And the other thing is it's a native solution. So like our goal is to convert like Maker into a full-fledged like fixed rate protocol, and without any limitations, like any collateral type, any term, any user type, any integration. So overall, like our goal is to like make Maker the fixed rate protocol. And with
I was going to ask, well, so how are fixed rates set right now? For example, institutional vaults set a fixed rate. How did they do that? I was under the impression they just took the current stability fee and negotiated down from there. So are you saying this would actually provide more information in these decision-making environments?
I have so in terms of setting rate, let's look at like all four solutions, right? So institutional vaults. So in institutional vaults, like it's a individual like negotiation, either with like one or group. It's like Ivy as a solution like supports multiple vaults. But then it boils down to like a social agreement, first like about the origination fee, and then second like the ongoing rate that Maker would hold constant. Maker governance would hold constant for like certain periods of time, either trustlessly or like, but overall it involves like a bit of a negotiation. Yield has a little bit of like a market characteristics to it, because Maker gets to set the discount at which it buys like yields like FI die. So there's a little bit of like a market characteristic to it, in terms of like Maker gets to like adjust this from a high starting point and then see like where it clears, where liquidity clears. Pairwise, Maker has to go in and fund like individual fixed rate agreements. Again, like there could be like multiple offers, and Maker chooses like what to accept. And in Deco, it's like the ability to, I guess, like sell a token. So you can Maker like starts off an auction at a limit price, and then everybody else competes to basically purchase what they think is like good enough for them. Yes, yeah. Like I said, like both TLM and like Deco have like market characteristics.
But hold on, I'm confused, because isn't TLM, like through the TLM, the rates are set via the purchase price of FIDI series by Maker governance, whereas with Deco, the claim fee token price is discovered on the free market. So isn't the free market setting the rates, not Maker?
Actually, yeah. I mean, yes, yes, yeah. Like the reason I said, like, I mean, TLM still even like could be repurposed to achieve like a little bit of like market, basically like even in TLM, like although it's not like as flexible as Deco, I still would say like Maker, for example, could emulate an auction, I would say, and could start off like could set the yield like really high at 10% and then slowly change it to see like at what point like liquidity clears, right? So there's like a crude like yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question really quick, Vamsi?
Yeah.
So for Deco, like the claim fee token, the way that Maker would be able to set the rate is by putting some sort of like a floor limit order on them, either through this auction mechanism. Okay, got it.
Say
got it.
DEX, like it like by creating tokens, like you suddenly expand, right? You can like do like social negotiations, like one-on-one, and like growth core unit can sell them, or like you can, I don't know, auctions, or put them on limit orders. We could also get like super fancy and do something more on demand. It's just a matter of like structuring how these would get go from like Maker's pockets into the pockets of like vault owners. So So yeah, basically it's like, yeah, the picture is like new product, new revenue stream, new users, because fixed rates, I mean, I don't know how else to make a case for fixed rates, because the real world, like most users are comfortable with fixed rates. It's just like, I mean, variable rates and fixed rates are just like two ways in which borrowing happens at like scale. So, I mean, if you're doing like variable rate, like naturally, I think there would be demand for fixed rates too. We'll skip these. And then let's just focus quickly just a little bit on like claim fee tokens and what they are. This is I guess I'd say like the final output of the integration. The way this would work is Maker generates these tokens, right? Like by Maker, I mean Maker governance, clicks like issuance, creates these tokens, finds a way to like sell them at whatever, at like some mechanism, let's say an auction. Vault owners on the market like will have the opportunity to buy these tokens, right? And these tokens, each like these tokens, like the token type would be basically like based on the collateral types. So there's a claim fee token for ETH, claim fee token for Bitcoin, etc. One mental model that you could use to understand like these tokens is like, think about it as like DSR and Chai. Essentially, these fee tokens are like just like how Chai is pointed towards DSR, a fee token is pointed towards like the stability fee of a collateral type. They just like are yield tokens that track a rate. What's in a fee token? So there's a couple characteristics. You have a balance, right? The balance like allows like, I don't know, I mean, think about it as a, like, let's say you enter into an agreement, right? It's hard to like negotiate you negotiate the terms up front, and usually just stays constant until the end. But here, by working with a balance, it's up to the vault owner. Like when they increase their debt, they can buy a few more claim fee tokens, right? To achieve the perfect hedge. If they reduce their vault debt, they could like sell some on the market and then like get some of the fees that they paid up front. So in a sense, it makes it very flexible. And then you have like the actual like claim fee token type. And then finally, issuance and maturity. So those three things are the characteristics. The reason maturity is important is basically is because if you've noticed, like throughout this entire discussion, we've never mentioned like, I don't know, anything about a vault. So vaults stay independent, and after maturity, the vault just remains a variable rate vault. It's not migrated outside Maker. It's not changed inside Maker. It's not like, doesn't have to move between collateral types. So in that sense, it gives it's possibly the least intrusive solution. And then
So Vamsi, I have a quick question around the yield token. I think, you know, the main concern that we've seen to date, and actually the reason why the vote is not proceeding, is because people are concerned that these are yield tokens, and that yield tokens, you know, similar to DSR, you know, represent some potential regulatory risk. So is there a way where this could be structured so that these concerns are abated and actually irrelevant to the product?
Yeah, like the reason we mentioned that, we started off, we stopped the proposal at the most base level. Like we stopped it at the tokenization level because we felt like that would help everybody understand the various possibilities. And then, but there's no reason for Maker to actually sell, like Maker gets to decide what the product is, right? If the product has to be fixed rate vaults, just like how like vaults are a product, we could like create a CDP manager that integrates this behind the scenes. So in the end, like when somebody wants to open a vault, they would just open an entire fixed rate vault. They wouldn't be exposed to the token. They're not really purchasing a token. Like, I mean, they don't have to purchase the token. The token need not be the product at all. Like we can wrap it into something like the CDP manager that's already being used and push it like completely behind the scenes.
So in terms of the growth strategy, my understanding is that you've already spoken to both growth and Oasis. So do you want to talk a little bit about your conversations with Oasis, and then maybe I'll talk a little bit about growth.
Yeah, we spoke to Oasis. It's our like big pictures, like integrations. I don't know, maybe like that's because of background, but it's like, having something that that can be built upon in a seamless, like scalable way, I think would expand the number of possibilities in the future. And so we spoke to the Oasis team, and they seem like they were like super interested, pretty supportive, and like they felt like something like this would help them basically integrate better and offer, like I said, offer the experience ultimately, like of users are or would want fixed rate vaults. They may most likely will not be interested in the actual claim fee token. So we need various venues to integrate it behind the scenes, and they see the tokenized like claim fee as a way to like achieve a more seamless fixed rate integration for like Oasis users.
Awesome. I mean, so one of the concerns right now with institutional vaults, after speaking with Nadia, is that we currently have a floor for the DAI debt that qualifies an institutional vault, and it's 200 million. And so right now there actually isn't a means to have a scalable on-ramp. And so, I think Nadia actually suggested that, she was open to potentially implementing Deco to turn institutional vaults over to them, but also to use it as a way to on-ramp smaller users so that they can have scalable means. Do you think that this could meet that requirement?
Yeah, absolutely. So like it's a product that scales across like user types. So there's no it doesn't impose like there's no reason to impose limitations on like on the size of the user. So obviously different users like need different could probably have like different needs, but here like and the big reason Deco is able to achieve that is by decoupling the fixed rate part, which is like just having to deal with the rate and the variability of the rate into a token, and like leaving the vault experience like as is and not having to like make any changes to that. So the nature of the solution helps basically target like different user types.
Yeah, at the very beginning of that whole conversation, there was a question of whether the fee token is a yield token and if there's regulatory risk. I kind of like missed your answer there.
Basically, the short answer is there's no reason for governance to actually sell the token itself. Like it could be wrapped into an entire fixed rate vault experience. Like everybody's familiar with the CDP manager contract, right? So CDP manager is like a contract that like right now, like most vault owners like open their vaults like through the CDP manager contract. It adds like a little bit more, I would say, functionality over like just the native, I would say, over like the VAT smart contract. So basically, like a CDP manager is like, think about it as a vault manager, right? Like most users today use Vault Manager to open their vaults and manage it. It's a part of the Maker protocol. Similarly, we could have a fixed rate CDP manager or a fixed rate Vault Manager. So that way, users are not interacting with the yield token. So far, like what I've seen is everybody thinking that the only way for Deco to serve users is to sell these tokens on the market, and selling the token on the market like constitutes like some sort of promise. At least that's the that has been like the concern expressed. So what we are saying is that when you wrap it into like Vault Manager smart contract, the claim token never like goes into the hands of users. So it would be like CDP manager and fixed rate CDP manager. So it's exactly like what Maker offers today. So
but at the beginning you talked about the claim fee tokens having rate discovery in a free market. Where does that happen if you abstract it all away in the CDP manager and like you're saying?
So that's the plug and play part, right? So basically it's like, so I mean, regulations and what is right or what is wrong, it's like it's a complex topic. Ultimately, it's like these tokens, right? These are essentially like, let's say Maker has a pool of like claim fee tokens. Maker sets all Maker has to do is like set some parameters on like what it on the sale process. The concern has been that there could be users could purchase these tokens and not have a vault open. So essentially they're speculators, right? But if these tokens are held by somebody who also has a vault, then it's basically it's almost like it's the fixed rate vault, right? They're not speculating on the actual rate, and they're not exposed to like gains or losses. So all they're doing is they're achieving like a fixed rate on, I'd say, a stability fee. So in that sense, it's like it's not the CDP manager contract is not putting limitations on how the token can be held. It's just that this thing is never tokenized, right? But you could sell it, but then you could basically, I mean, we have DS proxy, right? DS proxy like allows you users to batch a group of transactions. So there would never be a state where somebody purchases the claim fee token and like just holds it independently. Like when they purchase it, it automatically gets attached to a vault, and there's no way to like separate it back again. They would have to like hold that debt until the end of the maturity date, and then like the token just essentially expires, and they would be left with a regular vault. So in that sense, it's all about placing restrictions. We have to like just think through everything, right? Think through like what restrictions like Maker would want to place to make sure, like, I don't know, yeah.
I think that there's a couple of other benefits, right, to the tokenized design, and I think that the main thing is that it scales, right? So if we're looking at the next era of Maker, and we're looking at a need to grow rapidly, to bring more ETH in, to bring in more collateral types, the tokenized design allows it to scale and allows Maker governance to manage it effectively.
It's like one way to think about it is like, I mean, smart contract structure agreements, right? Like it's easy to think about like, okay, a smart contract structuring, like, I don't know, a certain agreement could be borrowing, could be lending. We've seen this play out before where we've had like iterations of like lending, borrowing, like I guess like Dharma, where it was more peer-to-peer, Aave. Like what's the difference between Maker and like earlier version of Dharma? Like both facilitated loans, both facilitated like, I don't know, a borrowing, like you lock collateral, you take a loan. It's just that with Maker, we've tokenized the loan process. Essentially, you can think about DAI as like the tokenized output of a loan, right? So in that sense, like Maker was more scalable because like the borrowing process was, the end result of the borrowing process was DAI, which is tokenized, which can be like sold in various markets, like purchased, bought, like it just opens up a whole realm of possibilities. Dharma and the peer-to-peer environment there was one-to-one, like a peer-to-peer thing. Like the agreement existed, but it was never tokenized. So I guess one way to think about it is that like what tokenization could, the possibilities tokenization could unlock are going to like basically help in scale. So most fixed rate solutions basically have stopped at these, like, I guess, agreement style smart contracts. There's no tokenization element there. Deco has the tokenization element, and we'd say like that would help like expand possibilities.
But I did want to note, I think one thing that was often overlooked in this proposal was is your current collaboration with PE in the Sandbox project. And I think that one thing that most voters aren't aware of is that by funding Deco in this proposal, Deco is actually going to be the first external integration that's written into the core Maker smart contracts. And so what part of what is going to come out of this is the first processing procedures in collaboration with PE and SES to enable parallel smart contract development, which I think there are probably some other people on the calls that can speak to this, but this is, in my understanding, a pretty significant blocker and will also be a significant feature that would be added. Can you talk a little bit maybe about what you've looked at to date? I don't know, I think I see Kurt here. I don't know if he has anything to say.
I mean, I don't think I have a ton to add to what's already been said. But, I'll just echo the sentiment that, I think Deco is a great, test bed for getting external integrations that are fairly deep and touch fairly core parts of the protocol, done by an external party. From an economic perspective, right? It's one of the, I haven't seen all the other fixed rate proposals in detail, but it's a really strong proposal because it leverages Maker's ability as the unique issuer of DAI to just really provide deep liquidity to the market. And it's just, I mean, I'll give full disclosure here. I'm actually like an advisor to a different fixed rate protocol called Sense, right? So I even have a conflict of interest, but like the best proposal for fixed rates in Maker I've seen is Deco. So like I'm telling you to use the, go with the thing that I'm not an advisor for, because I think it's, better for Maker here. And yeah, like Vamsi is, a Maker OG. He knows the protocol super well. So I can't think of someone I'd rather be working with to do something that's it's probably going to need, there's probably going to be at least one contract that needs permissions on the bat here from the technical side. So that's like the highest risk you can get. And, I wouldn't want, some unknown person just like developing something like that. But, so I think it's perfect that we've got someone who knows the protocol super well. I think it's like something the market will really like. And yeah, we certainly don't want protocol engineering to be a forever bottleneck on like smart contract development. So, this seems like the perfect, first step to, getting a more scalable, basically like engineering organization going. So that's my soundbite.
If folks want to quickly explore like pros cons, not pros cons, but basically like I have like a couple slides I can quickly go with them. But yeah.
So I would like to actually, so yeah, it's Rune here. I don't know if it shows that, but and so full disclosure, following Kurt's example, I'm an investor in Element, which is tiny investor, basically pointless compared to MMK holdings. But yeah, so that's sort of my full disclosure upfront. And then I still think, I mean, I'm a huge fan of this approach. Just obviously like the entire kind of the intention of like building something specifically for Maker and then bringing it to the community. That's just awesome. In fact, it's like it's not only about the product itself. It's like a stamp of approval for the entire core unit framework and all this chaos and craziness we've gone through to try to set up all this stuff. But basically, I really want to talk about like the pricing of this, and because I think it's. I mean, I was having a conversation with Vamsi and yeah, and since then I've been thinking a lot about there's this kind of tension, or like there's both the proposal as it's proposed right now with like these fixed payments essentially, as well as this kind of performance payment. But what I'm really also sort of struggling with is basically the concept of like competition between the different proposals, and this concept of like an official Maker fixed rates designation in a sense, and what that means in terms of basically favorizing one project over the other. And anyway, I think all of those dynamics are important to consider. I just would like you to talk in that direction.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rune. I mean, I guess, I liked, a couple, what is it, like a month back, you made a note on what you thought fixed rates, how it should operate. And one comment that I saw you make was that, you were concerned that, a native solution is the best potentially, but it's far away and PE doesn't have the time to do it. And that we should really be looking at using all the solutions on the table. And what does each solution afford and where is it best applied, right? And these other third party and other solutions provide the ability to expand the funnel, but they also require Maker to provide the liquidity. It's unclear how it would do that in some instances. is, and it's leaving money on the table. And so I think, you know, in instances where there are already users that want fixed rates, you know, it makes sense for Maker to have a core unit, have a native feature that's deploying those and that's actively working, you know, in concert with growth and risk to really manage that process. But that we should be looking at deploying all opportunities, you know, to grow Maker, because that is really, you know, what we need right now to stay competitive. And so, you know, the way we had structured this deal cost-wise is that, you know, part of the challenge is that a bunch of work has been done, and we wanted to, you know, and we prioritized Maker. We wanted to bring it to Maker first. And so the way the deal was structured is that there is a fee share, but that the cost or the revenue share goes to first compensate the core unit. So the protocol doesn't see any incentive until it's a net positive cost center for Maker. And we thought that that would be the easiest way for Maker to proceed, though we acknowledge that there are certain risks where, you know, for example, risk could determine that they only want a 15% fixed rate volume for some reason, or 20%, and the protocol would actually never see any incentive. It would simply be a core unit. And so, yeah, I really think that your observations are, you know, are 100% correct. And that's why we proceeded in this way, because Maker really needs a native feature, but it also needs to leave other options on the table to you know, to expand its funnel. But, you know, at the same time, we don't want to forego this opportunity. You know, as Maker holders, it's like, you know, we need to get going on this now so we can have the ability to get the product market fit instead of deferring and then not having this feature in the next 12 to 18 months, you know, and risk falling behind. So, you know, that's my obviously, you know, somewhat biased opinion, but.
But you just really could just quickly go through the exact cost over like the fixed cost of the code. And I remember we talked about something like the plan is like 3 years or something. And then there's this fee share, and just kind of the details.
Yeah. So it's a 5 FTE at about 140K a month. And the way it works is that when claim fees tokens are sold, 15% would go to a Deco wallet. And that would then, the drawdown for the core unit expenses would come from that first. And any core unit expenses that aren't covered, Maker would cover. And, you know, in the event that the money that was made by Deco exceeded the core unit cost, it would roll over to the next month. And only once Deco creates a full buffer for the entire core unit cost of 3 years would they be able to then take any additional incentive. You know, and in order to make this more palatable for Maker holders, we actually took a relatively small MKR comp relative to the standard PE and CES, and we took, you know, a fixed term, no repricing, no renewal. And so, you know, the objective here is to create a business and a product line, you know, working with growth, working with Maker, and at the end of 3 years, you know, give Maker the opportunity, you know, if they see it as being successful, want to grow it, to then just acquire the residual revenue stream, so that it basically creates a liquidity event at the end of 3 years. And, you know, the way it's structured is that it's a fully deferred compensation that's contingent on performance, you know, because there's 2 ways to really structure this deal. You know, we worked with SES and we met with some of the other delegates. You know, there's the way where Maker simply, you know, puts down some MKR or DAI, and they purchase the product feature, and then they integrate it, and then, you know, potentially we operate the core unit. But the challenge there is that it's hard to anticipate the future value of the product and to value the past work. And so in order to make it easier, compensation, you know, incentive compensation would only be provided to the product if it becomes wildly successful. And, you know, in some of the projections, the core unit breaks even at about 467 million TVL at 2.6%. So if institutional vaults become a thing and they move over to Deco and we're able to grow that product line a little bit, the core unit would be a net positive cost center. And, you know, at that point, you know, the protocol would receive, you know, approximately 200 to 400K of incentive And so, yeah, that's how the deal is structured. And, we posted that, we did the first proposal 2 months ago, and then the most recent proposal about a month ago. And the main feedback we got, was from a couple of the delegates, and, one delegate just thought it was a better deal to purchase it outright. And, those discussions, should be had. And I'm not sure if that clarified, Rune, but if you have
yeah,
more.
So I literally forgot the numbers, right? But you said something like 5 full-time employees. It sounds like it's about 2 million, bit more than 2 million for the 3-year period.
Yeah, it's a bit under 2 million. Yeah.
But that's but if these, basically the point is the way you're operating is that this is sort of the cost. So you're sort of offering this at cost, essentially. This is like the salaries. And then there's like bonus piece.
Yeah.
So the core unit is the core unit, as in but none of that money shows up as profit anywhere. It's spent to hire the people, again, exclusively to work on the integration, on Maker. So so that's why it's so leaving the core unit aside, that's a constant. Either for bringing the design feature, the development, either it's an upfront payment, which we kind of felt would be hard to calculate or hard to evaluate without a track record, versus giving us the opportunity to grow, show that it's valuable, and only be paid after 3 years. So it's really up to Maker. We honestly had there hasn't been a precedent set for something like this. So we just lent towards the direction where we wanted to show a track record and then get paid after. But if that's really the only reason for the complexity of the 15% and the buyout clause and everything. It's essentially we can't, we felt we couldn't make a decision jointly to assign a value to this upfront. But yeah.
What's the MKR amount in total?
It's 500
per year. Yeah.
Right, per year. Yeah, for 5.
Yeah.
So let me just calculate that.
So I mean, if you relate the value to the PE headcount or the recent CES, it's for the technical headcount, it is still significantly under. I think if you run the rates at CES, roughly it comes out to be 800, between 7 and 8.
And out of the 5 headcount, there's one smart contract engineer too. So that's really the.
Yeah, and so okay, so basically the cash is kind of the salary. That's doing the work. The MKR represents, that's kind of bonus essentially. So that's sort of this value that you're providing to Maker and then sharing in that, in a sense.
The MKR, is exclusively, sorry to cut you off. The MKR is exclusively to hire and retain the talent, right? So it's no different than any other core unit.
And then basically, because the way I'm sort of going is that the point is that eventually this turns into a self-sustainable thing. If it's not there's 2 options. There's sort of the communist option, where Maker sort of buys it out and runs it as this native thing that is sort of the official Maker fixed rates, official status kind of, and that's where Maker sort of goes for economies of scale in a sense, just pays for it all, does it all, focuses everything on this approach. And the other option is more what do you call it, free market or something, right? Where basically you kind of you took the risk in creating this proposal and bring it to governance, but then now you will have completely de-risked, you will fully de-risk sort of the actual work over the next 3 years of building it, integrating it, and setting it up. And then from there, it's what has then been set up is basically a fixed rate protocol that has sort of a team attached to it that is getting a profit share, and their goal will then just be to try to integrate that everywhere, spread it everywhere, sort of grow it, maintain it, so they can keep getting that profit share over time. And there's basically 2, I think that's kind of the thing where I want to get towards is that in the longer term, so even after these 3 years, even when this profit share thing is in place, there's basically there's sort of an implicit additional, almost like a negotiation that has to occur, or that's a part of this, or some kind of expectation that's part of it. Which is, I mean, first of all, it's something like Deco protocols integration into front ends around the ecosystem, to the extent that Maker can influence that. And if we assume that Maker just cannot influence that at all, then actually this doesn't matter, right? So Oasis, they'll integrate whatever they want to integrate. It's a private company now. DeFi Saver will integrate whatever, basically whatever gives them the cheapest rate in a sense. And this, whatever who they think is like their reliable partners for this stuff. In fact, they might integrate multiple and do kind of an aggregator thing across it. But that's where sort of the other thing comes in, right? Which is how much of Maker's stability appetite is funneled into this thing, because that is both kind of like a really like, there's just like I mean, first of all, this directly impacts the performance fee that you get. And it also, there's some kind of connection between that and the marketplace you create sort of on the other side of people who are buying into it, right? Because Maker wants to dump, it's kind of, it's fixed, they want to lock in its fixed rates into the markets, the different markets it can do it with, based on their liquidity, essentially. And their liquidity and where it gets the best prices. Anyway, so I'm wondering, so I'm wondering, what do you think of that, first of all?
So worst case, like worst case like from a profitability slash standpoint, Deco is just like used I guess, like, let's say if Maker, like there are like a group of solutions like all offering like Maker the opportunity to enter like their own versions of like fixed rates, and then Deco like plays a minor, along with like institutional vaults, and Deco plays a minor role, right? Helps like discover like the market rates, adds a bit more like data, so that everything else can be priced at an optimum level. So in that sense, essentially, like the only thing that would be is like we're managing a core unit, and we get the core unit compensation, and then like really nothing else. So if because this adds like, this gives like Maker the opportunity to, I guess, like have a feature that Maker controls, like there's an opportunity for Maker to like push more volume through Deco, because like naturally, like this is where the vaults don't move anywhere. This is where like for example, like one big thing is like surplus collection, right? Most other solutions like yield and pairwise, the surplus collection like happens like at the end of the term. Deco gives like books the revenue / profit like at the beginning of the term, right at the sale. Institutional vaults, it's a mix, like origination fee at the start and ongoing until the end of the term. So there's like all these advantages, and we naturally see even in a competitive environment like more volume going through Deco. And when that happens, like we naturally would have like this extra incentive. We'd actually see some profits out of the 15% share. But overall, like, yeah, it's like there is, I mean, it becomes as native as like Maker governance really wants it to be. There is other than that, I don't think we really have like any hooks in the system that essentially that lock Maker into this and nothing else. Like you said, user interfaces would aggregate and would just pick like whatever works for the users the best. So yeah.
I mean, so in a way, Deco bears the risk of external dependencies in terms of pushing volume to it. So it may or may not see an incentive, right? But at minimum, Maker will have a core unit that's working for the benefit of Maker, that's delivering fixed rates. So
it's the reason we went the reason we went with this model is it's an interesting model, like from us, right? Like most people just do a startup and I guess like, I don't know, get some liquidity from Maker and not worry about all these fee shares. The reason we went with the native approach is just like the scale of Maker. Like Rune, like you said, the communist model where essentially like Maker is the aggregator of like everything. Like we love that like future. As in, we want to see like Maker as like the source of like most of this liquidity, right? Rather than it getting like fragmented into like a bunch of like other solutions. So that's an end goal that we're like, I guess, comfortable with. So in that sense, like we thought like, hey, why don't we just bring it like as a native thing, and then we structure like our incentives on the back end behind Maker, rather than, I guess, like deciding whether we want to compete with Maker this month because like we have like low liquidity in our whatever to fund our like loans, and then like maybe next month we try to switch back to a cooperation mode. So rather than that, like we just stay behind. Our incentives are behind the Maker protocol, and we don't have to like worry about, I guess, competing one month and then like cooperating the next month. That's like one of the reasons why we went to it. It does look complex, but the big thing is that we are trying to, I guess, like align with Maker. It's just like Maker, the scale at which Maker operates in borrowing, right? Even compared to other lending protocols, it's really big. And most fixed rate solutions like have been like running into like liquidity issues. So naturally they're coming back to Maker. So we're like, I mean, we could have probably done something like that, but then we were like, I mean, if everybody wants to come back to Maker, why don't we like, I guess, jump ahead of them in a certain way? And that's the thing. But again, even with this proposal, like it's like the compensation part like can be upfront or after. Like there's no reason it has to be one way, and we are like totally open to like modifying these, right? Like I said, there's no precedent has been set like for something like this, somebody bringing a work product to Maker and integrating it and managing it. So naturally, if like governance prefers like a certain way, right, a delegate has expressed that like, yeah, this is too complex. After 3 years, I don't want to sit with you and negotiate like what the value of like 15% would be. If scaling that by, I don't know, 10 products, it just becomes like too much of a headache for Maker too. So naturally, like I guess governance could prefer like just purchasing it upfront. We're totally open to that essentially. Like it's just like what governance prefers at the end of the day.
What happens if Maker voters decide to sort of offboard the core unit? Like basically, are not, I don't know, for whatever reason, unhappy with the progress.
Yeah, that's the risk we are taking. As in, like we're like, I mean, we're taking a risk basically on our own execution, our own ability to basically set up the integration and then like basically grow it. Like I said, like there's no catch here. It's literally smart contracts, and it's like the reason, like I guess, like all those risks are there on our side. Like there is, it's there. It's just the nature of like working with a larger protocol, right? Like I mean, like Deco is like a feature. Deco is like a small thing. Maker is like a larger box, larger number of users, larger number of integrations, larger like market share, larger mind share. So in that sense, like that risk is always there. But yeah.
To be very concrete, Runa, the downside to Maker would be that because we're using continuous funding model, Maker would commit to funding the core unit for 1 quarter as it unwinds, and beyond that, there would be no additional risk to Maker. And the upside is if Maker does fund this in the next quarter, we will be able to make significant progress on the original or the first iteration of the sandbox contracts and getting this integrated. So, in a way, Maker funding this at this time is, universally a benefit when you look at the cost benefit against the risks, at least in my opinion.
Nice. So yeah, thanks for all the questions, Rune, and well, Paper just left, but also some good questions on the chat. I don't know if there's anything else we want to explore. We already had a call a couple of weeks ago. It's on the YouTube channel, explaining how this works in a more technical way. So I guess we covered enough all the different possibilities. I don't know, Rune, if you or anyone else have any any doubts or any concerns about how this could be moved forward by maker governance? Maybe David or Pros. Frank?
Yeah, I could talk a little, like very briefly about like what's going on in my mind. So right now there's 3 different solutions that have engaged with the maker community, right? And then there's even a couple more solutions that haven't, right? Like Sense Finance or Element.finance. But of course, taking the 3 solutions that are on the table and comparing them, like this call was extremely helpful. I got a lot of things from this call that I didn't get from my reading through the forums. So thank you, Vamsi. Thank you, Andrew. And generally speaking, yeah, like I want to learn more about pairwise and TLM. Like the biggest thing for me is that business development incentive, like having this native, having the team native, and having like a proper incentive structure to really build this line of business, I think is extremely important. So if we were to not go with Deco, for example, and go with pairwise or TLM, or really focus there, how do we do the same thing there? Is it that we give growth this initiative? No, right? Like would they need their own core units? So these are the questions that are floating in my mind for like what's the best path for Maker from a business standpoint. And so far, Deco has the incentives and everything kind of right. I really like where it's going. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment.
I had a couple of conversations with the PE team, and I don't know if this is something that you're adding on your table for comparing the projects, but what I heard, and I might be wrong on this one, but I think that this solution would include the least effort from the PE team, which seems to be the bottleneck at the moment in terms of speed, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of scaling fast. So that's something that should be considered as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. For TLM, for example, it's on the PE team, and also for pairwise, like it still isn't fleshed out, but they're also thinking, they're going to rely on the PE team and maybe provide 1 developer themselves, or 2 at most. But that's kind of just that hasn't been fleshed out by their team yet. But yeah, I totally see your point, Juan, and I agree.
Great. So yeah, we're approaching the top of the hour. I don't know if we have any other red team questions. I think we were relatively thorough. Maybe Vamsi or do you guys want to say something before closing the call?
Yeah, I see Frank on here. Does he have any thoughts or opinion? Just want to check in with all the delegates.
Yeah, for me, I'm really excited also that PE is, actually the incubation of the sandbox. I'm really interested in seeing how that's going to work and help any future incubation teams. And getting back to Kurt's point, this is something that Vamsi is bringing to the table, right? The fact that he has worked with a lot of these protocol engineering team members in the past, and there's a connection there, and they have a good working relationship. So me personally, for Flip Flop Flap delegate, I'm leaning very heavily on Deco, full disclosure.
Nice, thank you, Frank.
I do have a really quick question before you close it out, Juan. For the cross-team effort, so I was thinking about this. Although Deco doesn't need PE in the same way that the others might, wouldn't Deco still need to engage PE during solution design coordination? Like, isn't there kind of like, no matter what, going to be some overlapping coordination that has to happen? Or am I thinking about it wrong?
I mean, this is something that we will need to solve as a DAO, right? When you start decentralizing things and you get redundancy, you potentially want people reviewing the code that goes live by a bunch of different people. At this stage, PE probably has a monopoly on this, so we would want them to review, and it's not that we want to oust them. And
I think one concrete output that we've been discussing with the CSP is like leaving Deco aside, like using Deco as like a test case but we design the intermediary contract or the interfaces like that sandbox risk of like external smart contracts. So that way, maybe in this instance, like maybe PE, like, like so designing that sandbox like would basically help like the future integrations, right? That want to, I guess, like not at the liquidity level, but maybe like want to similarly like natively bring a feature to Maker. They could like reuse the same interface and then like essentially that sandbox like in Wouter's words caps the risk of like losses on the Maker side. Versus, I guess another example could be like giving like VAT.suck full access of VAT.suck to Deco would mean like something wrong, something goes bad on the Deco side, and we suck like I don't know 100 billion DAI or something. It's like just a crazy loss rate. Versus the sandbox contract that we basically figure out is like thinking about the various ways in which like we can cap risk. And in that way, even the worst possible like hack at the integration level would still like cap the risk on like Maker side. So that contract has like there's no such contract yet, and it'll be like I guess like in our future discussions, like we'll basically hash that out and see if it works for Deco. And then if it does, like then like Kurt mentioned, Deco is going to touch like a few parts within the Maker protocol. So in that sense, like every other integration would naturally do the same, right? So they could apply like the learnings and then give everybody else a template that they could easily follow, so that like you're not repeating this again and again. And naturally, over time, it reduces the load on like PE and the amount of due diligence they have to do on each integration.
Great.
While still
Nice to see.
continuing to keep Maker safe. Yep.
Yeah, nice to see that we will see a live version of, or potentially see a live version of the sandbox. Looking forward to that. I think it will be crucial in scaling Maker. So yeah, the discussions, we keep them on forum.makerdao.com for anyone watching. Vamsi, what's the best way to reach you if there are any questions or comments?
info@deco.money.
Nice.
Send us an email.
So thank you guys for coming. As always, it was great having you, and let's see you around.
Thanks.
Nice one.
Everyone. Bye.